Richard Belzer, of course, is a researcher and is author before he became a movie star and TV star. And Belzerbook.com, ibelz.com. His new book went on the New York Times bestseller list, and I think it's the best JFK book out in over a decade because it chronicles all the witnesses that were killed to cover it up. And that's the real proof of what happened, but we're not so much getting into that today. He was on with us for like an hour and a half extended overdrive interview, because I always go to guests late, because I want guests, but then I also want to be able to talk, so it kind of split it up. And he was there when the bombing happened, and we basically predicted everything that would then unfold, that there'd be drills, that the patsies would be connected to the NSA and CIA, all of it. But who would know that we would route the story so quickly and it would blow up in spectacular fashion? So you've heard my Google ranting. You've heard my all of it coming out here. I am in overload. I mean, my brain has already been rewired, man. And let me tell you, it's wired against this stuff. A lot of people get rewired to, like, submit to the tyranny. I'm wired into the tyranny, but it's like torture, you know, pain amplifiers or something. But it's not really like a pain. It's more of a enraged aphrodisiac of like a caged animal struggling against his incineration. Do you see what I'm saying, Richard Belzer?
I see exactly what you're saying. The synaptic aspects of our brain are being overloaded with information that people like you and I have known for a long time, and we're frustrated when we try to tell other people. I've been censored for years, Alex, from, I can't tell you how I've had plugs pulled on me and I was taken off panels. And
you've been talking about this stuff since the 70s.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. Your last guest made a very chilling, astute observation about how a different age group is fed different information. Like her father would not know that Monsanto, you know, was the devil, but younger people who are more tech savvy are more into that, so they give them their information. That is really starting to get scary. In the 1950s, our government in the 50s had a thing called Operation Mockingbird. They were already working on looking at us through televisions, and that was cathode ray tubes. Now, of course, you know, they could see us when our TVs are off.
Now they just hide the camera in plain view.
Yes, and you said before, you know, if Hitler wore flowers, you know, Hitler didn't have to wear flowers for the bankers in the United States and the Harrimans and Prescott Bush and John Kennedy's father and the DuPonts. You know, Hitler declared war on us. We didn't declare war on Germany. I have nightmares wondering how long we would have waited before we declared war on Hitler. I mean, he was in Paris in 1940. We still weren't at war with them. We were helping Hitler throughout the war. I
want to talk about that when we come back, because I know you've written about it, and it's on record, but also it shows the normalcy bias. We're faced by our own Hitlers today. ProPure is introducing Pro One. All of your filtration in one system, portable, on the go. This is the Pro One by ProPure. You wanted it, you got it. No more do you have 2 or 3 filters to just reduce sodium fluoride. You have a system that cuts out the sodium fluoride and up to 95% of hydrofluorosilicic acid. Advanced manufacturing technology combines silver-impregnated white ceramic with new Aquamedics advanced media for removal of fluoride and other heavy metals, all in one filter element. It cuts out the acid derivative of fluoride. It is the only one that does it. And out of the gates, we have it discounted at 10% off with promo code WATER. This is the only system that in one unit helps reduce or remove pesticides, herbicides, chloramines, ammonia, and chlorine, hydrofluorosilicic acid, the most common form of fluoride not covered by other fluoride filter brands, and sodium hexafluorosilicate. This is a revolution against the tyrants. They love putting the toxic acid base of fluoride into your water. They love the fact that it's an adjuvant supercharging the trace Prozac in the water and the hormones and the other chemicals. By cutting out fluoride, you cut out the turbocharger in all the poison being artificially introduced into your body. This is what I use. It's a win-win. You get a high-quality product at the lowest price. You support the InfoWar. Get your ProPure with the new Pro One filter today at InfoWarsStore.com or by calling 888-253-3139. Folks, I'm here ranting and raving. I'm just trying to get you to wake up. I mean, I covered the fact that the West funded Hitler 18 years ago when I first got on air. Anthony Sutton was really the first to expose it because he was able to get into congressional files. But there were a lot of bomber pilots who complained over the fact they couldn't bomb Ford and General Motor factories all over Germany. And so they would fly and bomb the same factory over and over again that was already destroyed, but they couldn't bomb these others. And back at the time, it was called rumors. And it just shows how even as the war went, the West was making money off of it. Just like the globalists fund al-Qaeda, but then also say we've got to give our rights up because of al-Qaeda. Richard Belzer, you'd gone off into that area, author Richard Belzer. I want to get back into the Boston bombing with you, the book, all the IRS spying on groups that promote the Constitution. It's like, oh, it's not just the Tea Party or libertarians. It's if you promote the Constitution, we're coming after you. I mean, that is absurdist. That's exactly what bad guys would do.
Actually repellent and sickening. You know, there was a play by T.S. Eliot called Murder in the Cathedral, where the king wanted to get rid of the bishop who was in his way, and he didn't. He said, "Who will rid me of this priest?" So, like, he didn't say kill the priest, but of course his underlings killed, Becket. And now the president or whoever, let's say anyone up there can say, "Who will rid me of this group?" Whether it's left or right. It's ironic that they want to, suppress patriotism. That's really chilling. So it's like now they have the IRS. They don't have to, kill you or poison you. They can, like Nixon had an enemies list. Every president can use this chilling device, which is probably illegal anyway. IRS is probably technically extortion anyway. But to use it as a threat, even if it wasn't Obama, it's people within his administration of a like mind. So, it's really scary. I mean, I know you and I have seen a lot in our day, and we seem to be a little bit ahead of the curve. But since the Boston bombing, the constellation of events and the Googleization of the Bilderbergers and the parsing of information to various age and demographic groups through computers is, you saw Oblivion, right?
Yes.
An absolutely brilliant movie where this face on the screen finally at the end says, "I'm your God," which is what these Google and these banking people say. And
you notice it's an upside down black pyramid that looks like the Google eye. I mean, look,
yes.
I said on air, you may have missed it, but in fact, I like the fact that you didn't hear me say it, so listeners can hear you say it and agree, because minds that love liberty think alike.
Yes.
I mean, this is some of the most anti-Illuminati, anti-tyranny propaganda I've ever seen. I mean, what did you make of that? I'm surprised they were able to get Oblivion out.
Well, I think, it was shocking that Oliver Stone got to make his movie, but it got out. Once in a while, it happens. I think Oblivion might have been a little bit dense for the studio executives, and they didn't realize what it was, really. And kudos to Tom, whatever you think of him.
I agree.
know Tom. I think he's a great guy. His religion is his business.
You're saying you know him? You think he's a great guy?
Oh, I've met him. I've been with him a few times.
Yeah.
He's a real gentleman, and he's a real, as the Yiddish expression, mensch. He's like a good guy.
Yeah, mensch. Yeah.
And he was very, very nice to my daughter and son-in-law, and I was with him a few times, and you could just see that he's not as huge as he is. He carries it well. But I think him making this movie, him in particular, he's an iconic figure who's very controversial. And if you notice recently, there was a poll came out and said that he was like the least admired celebrity or something. It came out right around the time the movie came out. So, it's like they're preemptively trying to discredit him personally because that movie may have hinted at something that people don't want people to know.
Oh, it's hardcore. I mean, at so many levels. It's got The archetypes all exposed, the compartmentalization, how people working for the system are really destroying themselves. I mean, it's a very deep movie.
Yeah, and you know, what started scaring me a few years ago was like I would buy a book online, and then the next time I'd buy a book, hey, Richard, you might like this. I'm like, whoa. You know what I mean? They immediately jump into your taste and every aspect of your being.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't tell my dad the stuff I'm doing on computers, my own private stuff, my mother, my wife. Why the hell does Google and Schmidt get to sit there and see everything I'm into or anything I'm investigating? Many anthropologists and archaeologists believe that before man even discovered the power to harness and use fire, we were involved in agrarian activities. That is, taking the seeds of plants and then replanting them to produce more. The very foundation of our modern civilization and human culture is centered around the planting and cultivation of edible plants, fruits, vegetables, nuts, you name it. And the globalists have been going after gardening. They've been harassing people that have gardens in their front yards or their backyards. They've called for licenses for people to have gardens because you can't trust prisoners in the police state America to be able to grow their own food. That's why I've come to the realization that we need to become self-sufficient. You need to be informed. You need to have the Second Amendment to protect yourself. You need to be politically active to wake up others. You need to filter your water. But you also need to plant a garden. Even if you live in an apartment, you can do this. If you live in the countryside, obviously you can do it on a grand scale. There are so many green belts and areas that humans don't even visit, nearby cities and in suburbs, where people are now more and more planting their own little private gardens and meadows and off the side of the road. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a revolutionary act to unplug from the television, to unplug from the computer and all the globalist propaganda, and to go out in your backyard or your front yard or planters at your apartment or on the roof of the building where you live, and to plant a garden.
Here are some of the amazing deals at InfoWars Seed Center at InfoWarsShop.com. The Survival Seed Vault by My Patriot Supply features only the finest survival heirloom seeds for a robust and hardy garden, even in the toughest of times. The ARC All-in-One Seed Kit contains 70 varieties of 50,000 seeds of fruits, vegetables, medicinal, and culinary herbs. All ARC seeds are heirloom. Each type is labeled and sealed separately for ease of use and longevity. The Deluxe Emergency Seed Bank combines 3 of Emergency Seed Bank's top sellers: the Family Survival Emergency Seed Bank, the Medicinal Herb Seeds Pack, and the Culinary Herb Seeds Pack. We also have starter varieties of the deluxe seed packages for fruit, salad, salsa, peppers, and medicinal herbs and more. Go to the InfoWars Seed Center at InfoWarsShop.com.
A little seed can grow a huge tree that produces fruit for up to 50 years. We have the best life bombs. That's what these are. We have the best weapons against death out there at the lowest prices, waiting for you to lovingly plant them and lovingly grow them and lovingly eat them and share them with others. We will strike back against the New World Order, and this is only one more initiative in our fight against them. So please join us at InfoWarsShop.com, or you can link through at Infowars.com at the InfoWars Seed Center. I'm glad this story got some attention via DrudgeReport.com last night and this morning, because this is a big story. Homeland Security funded exercises portrayed homeschoolers as terrorists. And then in the article, it goes through some of the newest drills where, quote, angry parents attack the school, and then other drills where, going back for years, but it's still going on, they train where, quote, homeschoolers are in a mock attack and tell the elementary students they're attacked by a fictitious radical group called Wackos Against Schools and Education, who believe everyone should be homeschooled. That's what the children are told as guns are pointed at them. And then in the new training video in Seattle, Sergeant Dan Passion says, well, we're having such a big problem with this all across America while we're doing this drill. Yeah, of parents attacking schools and homeschoolers attacking schools. Amazing. And I got a bunch of other news. I'm going to try to run through some of the headlines. But this big IRS enemies list deal where the Washington Post has to admit that, okay, it was any group, quote, promoting the Constitution. Probe expands to groups opposed to government who teach the Constitution. IRS targeting groups that criticize the government. And then it goes on to say, or promoted the Constitution. Promoted the Constitution. People could say, well, the founders, they still had slaves. But the Constitution's interpretation expanded to where then it got banned. They tried to ban it when they first created the Constitution in 1798. But it took 60-something years to do it. The point is, it's the idea of liberty. Why are they demonizing it? Because it creates checks and balances on government. By the way, Richard Belzer's book, Hit List, is the new one, an in-depth investigation into the mysterious deaths of witnesses to JFK assassination. Very strong. In his last book, Dead Wrong, Straight Facts on the Country's Most Controversial Cover-Ups, Richard Belzer and David Wayne, both available at InfoWarsStore.com. You know, Richard, I'm here asking the questions. Instead of that, where do you want to go with all this news? I mean, we've now discovered from our source and then gone there and proved it that Bilderberg is merging with Google. Of course, a big, giant internet takeover grid. You've got the best of times, worst of times. People are really waking up, or they're getting deeper into the trance. You talk to a lot of heavy hitters. I'm seeing, you know, incredibly demonizing messages out of Hollywood for liberty, but also a lot of positive messages. In fact, more positive than I used to see. What's going on in the world from your perspective?
Well, a lot of people are walking in their sleep and refuse to even entertain some of the even not as dark stuff that you and I get into, because you and I have a passion for the truth. As you know, we don't have to make anything up. And when I talk to, you know, some of my people in the industry who are powerful and smart, and a lot of them resist the notion of these conspiracies and murders and cover-ups in the government. But now these corporations and the government, they have to openly talk about it, because now 1984 goes both ways with the internet. So, you know, we're right on their heels. You know, for them to say anybody who's talking about the Constitution, that's right, left, center, that's the American citizenry. They're declaring war on everyone. Don't think it's just the Tea Party or just, you know, guns rights groups. And, you know, the civil rights movement was kind of sabotaged. Hoover would have black agents infiltrate a civil rights nonviolent group, incite them to violence to discredit them. And then when it went to trial and that person was indicted, they, you know, go into session, into the judge's chambers, the case thrown out because national security. So we have to be very careful, as you know better than anyone, about any event that happens where it's like, you know, the Boston Marathon, 9/11. I mean, it just keeps on spilling out the information. The initial story is always wrong, and then something else comes out, and then it's, you know, I've been studying the Kennedy murder for 50 years, and we're still finding stuff out about it. So, but the difference between now and then is we have the technology, we have the tools. Your newsletters and your show makes people tell other people. And, you know, we have to, it's like, we started as families and then tribes and villages, but now it's this global, dark global force that has named themselves. The masks are off. You know, the mega banks, the banksters as you've coined them, and the oil companies and communications, you know,
Richard, why do you think, I'm sorry to interrupt, you're about to say something about.
Go ahead.
Why do you think they're getting so brazen? Is that an attempt to just normalize things because they've failed at covering it up? And then give us your quote.
No, I think you're right on the money. They're normalizing it. But how dare they go into a school and draw guns for a drill? I mean, that's as bad as making kids duck under a desk when they would be incinerated. I remember as a child, I mean, I'm old, so, you know, going into the basement and kneeling against a wall and making us pray. And I was looked at my friend, I mean, he's like, you know, fifth grade, I don't know, really young kids saying, what are they talking about? You know, this isn't going to do anything. And, you know, and I knew that as a child. But they're reshaping language and it's a soft dictatorship. This country literally, by definition, is a fascist country now, because it's a country for the corporation, not the individual, as defined by Mussolini. And if you look at every Supreme Court decision in memory, every time there's a lawsuit against a corporation or a landlord or a boss, the corporation wins. The individual rarely wins. And that's why I think the government's getting a little scared, because people are outraged. And, the gun issue is an issue that everyone is emotional about and has feelings about. And you can't demonize every single person who owns a gun. First of all, it's physically impossible to take guns away from everyone. And second of all, everyone has the right. I mean, it's a question of the permutations of the law and to what degree the government can impose its will. And I'll tell you one more thing, Alex, if I may. One of the most important things about this country is the right to privacy. Jefferson and Adams, particularly Jefferson, that is something I personally cherish. And I cherish it for my family. And The Godfather, when Michael says to first Don Corleone says to Sonny, never tell anyone outside the family what you're thinking. You know what I mean? And now Google is our family. We're supposed to tell them what we're thinking. This faceless corporate fascist entity that's not even a corporation anymore. It's a monster. I guess they're going to cut off my Skype or something.
No, I totally agree with you. Your Skype did break up for a moment. Richard Belzer is our guest. Let me just give you an example of what you're talking about in the listeners. Punch my computer up on screen, please. New York Times, 2 hours ago, Monsanto wins case on genetically altered soybeans. Now, you read the first paragraph, and it says, oh, well, they won a victory saying farmers can't mix their seeds in with other seeds and say they own it. But that's not actually what the case was, because I've been following it for 2 years and had the lawyers on about it. Plants don't have one daddy, one mommy. Plants can be 1/10 of 1% another plant of the same, general variety. And so Monsanto pollen, whether it's corn, soybean, you name it, blows around, and you get some of its genetics into other people, and they can go prove, I bought my seeds here, they're heirloom, they're not Monsanto. Almost every Mexican corn variety, there's thousands, has been infected by one form of BT corn. Now, Monsanto then goes and sues the Mexican farmers, sues the canola farmers in Canada, sues the soybean farmers in North Dakota. They go and pull the plant, test it. They go on your property and say, it's 1% Monsanto. And you go, but I bought the seeds. Well, it doesn't matter. You infringed on our patent when they're the ones that have dumped toxic waste on you. The Supreme Court rules they can do this and then sue you when they contaminate you or their seeds get in grain elevators mixed in. And then the article deceives and makes it sound like the people were stealing Monsanto seeds. Now, is that not, Richard, incredible?
Well, to patent food, Alex, that's where riots start. When you start controlling food, I mean, this is really, it's like with the stem cell research. I don't think there's anything wrong if a woman gives birth and she donates her umbilical cord and someone can use the cells from that to regenerate their heart or to help, an injured spine. There's nothing wrong with that. But in America, in this country, there's 5 patents on stem cells. You can't use the whole stem cell. You can only use factors of it. It's crazy how these corporations are actually getting into our cells, into our food.
Oh, it's worse than that, Richard. As you know, they ruled, 6 years ago? People can type it in. People will go in for cancer gene treatment, and they'll say, oh, well, you gave a blood donation at this blood bank 20 years ago. A company bought that. They type tested and then patented your individual protein structures. You have to pay $100,000 extra to have this now. They own your genetics.
Yeah, there's a famous case of a woman who was used, they used her blood, and it was used in a way that it was introduced and so like thousands of other people have an element from this woman's blood. They didn't tell her, they didn't tell her family. They only found out later. God knows what, you know, if God forbid, if you have to go in a hospital, you know, they draw your blood and they take tests, where does that information go? And Alex, I don't mean to be morbid, but my sister-in-law went into the hospital last November and died of something she didn't go in for. You know, and it's like she got an infection in the hospital, and on her, I wanted my brother to sue, and on the death certificate it said unidentifiable, undiagnosable causes. How dare they to protect themselves from libel? So these people are lawyered up. They twisted the law on torture.
Exactly. So where does it all go? We're ready to give up all our rights because of 3 people dead at the staged Boston bombing. We've got a government with a history of it, but then it's bad to say, hey, they may have done it again, even though they're known perpetrators. And then you've got, let's be conservative.
Sure.
500,000 people dying from flesh-eating bacteria or hospital staph infections a year in this country alone. It's growing. You've got from 1 in 25,000. And, of course, my number's higher. They say like 200 and something thousand die from it, but the numbers I'm getting is they keep lying on the certificates. It may be 3 times higher. So when I say 500,000, the number may be like 1 million. It's kind of like adverse effects from vaccines, maybe 1 report out of 100. So they say it's 290-something thousand from flesh-eating bacteria or other infections that are caused by these hospitals. So let's just say it's 1 million. I just said 500. People say, where do you get these numbers? But it expands on that. You've got hundreds of thousands from drug interactions, hundreds of thousands from mistakes, but no one's fear-mongering, hey, the hospital's deadly dangerous. They're not going to fix the problems. They just paper over it. So how far can the BS go when the establishment's lawyered up, but that still won't protect them from reality?
Well, this is why our heads are exploding, Alex, because we know that people are giving up their freedom unknowingly. People are self-censoring. That's the most chilling kind of censorship to me. When you think of something, you say, oh, I better not say it. Self-censorship, that's how scary things are, how repressive. But fortunately, we have the internet, and you have your show, and you're reaching millions of people, and we just have to keep beating the drums and protecting our families and getting real personal, because the macrocosm is so overwhelming. People, it's so complex and overwhelming that people can't really wrap their brains around it. That's why your show is so important. And I want to volunteer. I'm going to France. I'd like to be your check in once in a while as your French correspondent and let you know what the European papers are saying and
absolutely. Look, when you wake up at 7 a.m. or 6 a.m., whatever it is, and you're lying there awake, or when you're get home at night and you're laying in bed, you're meditating, you're thinking, where do you see things going in your mind's eye? 35, 40 years of researching this. Where do you think it's going?
I have to tell you, Alex, I'm almost at a loss for words, because I'm deep into my Kennedy research and I'm finding things out that I thought I should have known. And now this stuff is all piling up, and it seems like things are speeding up towards everything that we feared, but it's disguised through corporations making it soft kill. And I think I see it all going really dark unless we, the people,
exactly,
just shooting back non-violently through information.
Well, see, that's my frustration. Exactly. I feel people call in and thank me, or you're thanking me, and it's actually torturing me, because I will be calm at night or calm driving into work and have a million points I want to make that are so piercing and important to warn people. Right. And then I get on air and, and we cover most of it, but still you're on air and you lose, part of your IQ or whatever. But my point is, we're not doing enough. I mean, I know this is super dark and bad. I know it's accelerating. And I feel like I should be doing more, Richard, but I don't know what that lever is to get us out of this. And then as things get confirmed, people say, I bet you're feeling pretty good. Everything's coming true like you said it would. And I'm like, no. Hey, I bet you're feeling good. Your show's getting bigger. Hey, Richard, your book's on the New York Times bestseller. I bet you're feeling good. And you're like, I guess in a way people are waking up, but no. I mean, why? It's like, it's
what, Alex? I think part of the solution would be a film and documentary. That's very powerful stuff. And the way to do it is through popular entertainment. That's how people learn. And, you know, some documentaries have had some very chilling, Thin Blue Line and Silence in the House of God. There's certain documentaries, A Fog of War. So I'm working on one now about the 50th anniversary, but I'm going to tie in the Nazi connection and our history since World War II. It's going to be very expansive. And I wouldn't mind interviewing you, and then you have approval over what
I don't care, whatever. No, man, I trust you. I mean, hell, I let the enemy interview me. I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do. No.
That's true. No, but what you're doing the right thing. TV, internet, radio, newsletters, your films. It just keep pounding away. You know, it was a handful of guys in a room that started the American Revolution, and they were all rich landowners. So, you know, but we have technology. We don't have the millions of dollars in the slaves, but we do have technology as one of our weapons, and we just, you know, loud and clear, loud and clear.
Richard Belzer, we're going to do 5 minutes overdrive and let him get out of here. And yes, I would love to have Richard Belzer pop in with reporting. You know, the main reason I got you on, Richard, was to get your take on the last time you were on was 3-4 weeks ago, the day of the London bombings. Not the London bombings, I'm thinking about 7/7 being a staged event back when I covered that, where they had a drill. The Boston bombing. And we said, watch there be a drill. Watch there be a standout. I mean, we said it may be real, but if this happens, look at it. And then the way the FBI came out and said, don't look at any other photos. What is your take on the Boston bombing?
Well, it was amazing that we're on the air when it happened. And, you know, history will not absolve us if we do not forever question, hold accountable, and improve the gift from our forebears, what historians have called our experiment in democracy. You know, we all have to join in this quest to preserve the very soul of our nation. So by you getting castigated for just telling what you saw on the screen when they had their patsy there and they called the press, and then he disappears and they disperse the press, and you see guys dressed in classic style in key strategic positions. You know, you don't have to be a crazy person or a detective to see that the government's handling of the information initially and thereafter became more and more sparse and condensed and marginalized anything on the edges.
Oh, they were acting desperate and running scared. Like, don't look at those photos. Don't look at the drills. Don't look at anything.
That's, you know, that's like saying don't see this movie, and then you go see the movie. They're inadvertently driving us to find out what they're doing by saying, don't look behind the curtain.
You know, there's the paradox. These are just men and women we're fighting as well.
That's
Most
right.
of them are just lazy and go on to get along. They're compartmentalized. And we think of the system as invincible and all-powerful. They're not. But our incredible weakness is what has let this scum take over. So really, the buck does stop with us.
It does, because they're really good at making the citizenry go after each other over petty political things, when the big picture is there's no political party. You know, this is humanity. We're Americans. And
that's right. We're fighting over gay marriage, regardless of what side you're on. They're purely using it as a political football.
Absolutely. Both sides.
So they don't have to cover real issues like, why is $85 billion a month given to these robber barons and banker bailouts?
Well, like, you know, it was tragic. Those girls were, you know, kidnapped for 10 years and all. But that was on the news for 24 hours a day for 3 days. You know, I was bumped from interviews. And you know, meanwhile, you got the IRS. You got 2 wars that are still on. You got all these other things going on. And the Congress quietly passing a law where they can still do insider trading. You don't hear.
You've got hundreds of thousands of people dying with flesh-eating bacteria, and it's not even an issue. My best friend, or one of my best friends, longtime childhood friend, went in for a minor deal, got a deadly bacteria, dead 24 hours later, total. I was there when he died. He was like 33 years old, and I sat there and I watched him die here in Austin, and they put on the death certificate, you know, something else.
Undiagnosable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's really hitting the fan now in a good way, so we have to be extra diligent.
By the way, I get in contact with from time to time or run into really interesting people, and we're probably going to be getting on the show one of the greatest comedic geniuses of all time. I'll just leave it at that, who is a longtime listener of the show. And I'm really looking forward to that. Speaking of comedic genius, not only has he been a journalist, movie star, TV star, Richard Belzer is in Scarface, ladies and gentlemen, as the comedian at the Coco Cabana, or whatever it's called. So that right, the Babylon Club, excuse me. That's right, the Babylon Club. So you got to be envious of that and the whole shootout scene with Tony Montana.
Tony Montana.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, how cool is that, getting to work with the master Oliver Stone that wrote that?
Well, I auditioned for Oliver Stone. He was the writer, but he was in the room when I auditioned for the part with the director and the producer. And what it was it was all these comedians in the waiting room to go into audition. And they were making these comedians do their act and do a joke. And so when I went in, I said, I don't work in offices. If you come down to this nightclub, I'd be glad to do my act for you. And the producer said, no, Richard, just do your act. You know, like I saw you do in the club the other. I said, with all due respect, I can't, this is not where I do my act. And they were like all looking at each other. And then the next day I got a call that I got the part. So I'm not advising people to not audition when they audition, but.
Well, you were obviously called there because they already wanted you, and they liked the fact that you went no.
Yeah, Marty, the producer. You know, I just saw this headline, Alex, which is really funny. IRS acted alone in targeting criteria for political groups.
Oh, I'm sure they did that all on their own, even though they'd all go to jail if they didn't. Unbelievable. Oh, I guess Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, too.
Yeah, right, all three of them. I spoke to Chris the other day. You know, when Chris Walken works, they give him a phone he can throw away so they can just, you know, tell him when to be at work. Because, as you know, he's not on any Google map. He doesn't have a cell phone. He doesn't have a computer. I have to call 3 different numbers to leave him a message, which I think is cool. He's the only person on earth I know that's not.
Well, obviously, he's super politically, you know, wired and knows what's going on, but he's super private. I don't want you to give up any state secrets here. We can put video of you guys on the show for TV viewers last time you were on 2 times ago. But
he's unpolitical. The point is like every time I start ranting, and I've known Chris for 30, 40 years, you know, I would start ranting like in the 80s, for instance, you know, about something Reagan did or whatever. And he'd sit there and listen, and then he would just turn to me and say, hasn't it always been like that? And then 10 years later, I'd be ranting about George Bush Sr., you know. Hasn't it, you know, so every 10 years, Chris reminds me that nothing has changed.
You know, I agree with him, but it's getting worse now, and we're approaching a Stalin or Hitler level deal. I mean,
well, what's different now is the technology. Human nature is the same. Sociopaths will always gravitate towards power, and the sociopaths will get together and pick the meanest one. But now we have the tools to hopefully identify them and call them out. But, you know, this report just came out, Alex, 500 plus pages, and no one was indicted. And, no, you know, Obama's a war criminal. Bush is a war criminal. By definition, in this report, condoning torture, and that just went out.
Hey, you know what? I was so wound up earlier, I was running over you. If you got to go, you got to go. You want to continue one more segment to get into that report?
I'm here, buddy.
Yeah, let's pull up the bipartisan report that Bush Jr. and Obama are war criminals. And there's been no coverage because the next day after it came out, the Boston bombing happened. And again, oh yes.
Oh, that's right.
Oh yes.
Hi, Ted Anderson, president of Midas Resources. With over 30 years of experience in the precious metals business, I can tell you without a doubt, we are facing the most dangerous and volatile times, not just in the United States, but worldwide. Peace of mind is gold and silver. Now is the time to invest in gold. When it comes to bullion coins, our prices are competitive and the closest to melt. If it's numismatics you're looking for, we have some of the best deals out there. Visit MidasResources.com today or go to Infowars.com and click on the link to see our daily specials. Here's an example of one of our long-term specials we've been offering for more than a year. 2 silver dollars from the turn of the last century, plus 2 powerful films, The Obama Deception and The American Dream. We also add in the book Dishonest Money, all for $72 and free shipping. The most trusted name in precious metals is Midas Resources. Call 1-800-686-2237 or go to Infowars.com. I'm Ted Anderson with Midas Resources.
We are now only entering the edge of a global financial superstorm, the likes of which the planet has never seen. Here in the United States, the private Federal Reserve is giving more than $85 billion of taxpayer money a month to themselves and other offshore foreign banks. And the worst part is, we have to pay the bank's interest on the money we give them. There is now a race between the global central bank mafia cartels to see who can devalue their country's currencies the fastest. We are already seeing big increases in inflation at the grocery store and the gas line. This will eventually lead to hyperinflation. More than a dozen top globalists like George Soros have been buying record amounts of gold while at the same time bad-mouthing it to the public. Don't just listen to what they say. Watch what they do. For more than 6,000 years of recorded human history, gold has been the ultimate hedge against uncertain times and inflation. Before investing in metals, it is important to do your own research and find a reputable company. Midas Resources has the highest Better Business Bureau rating of an A+. Unfortunately, very few precious metal companies can boast that. Midas Resources has assembled one of the most educated, researched, and professional teams of brokers in the industry. The evidence is overwhelming. In uncertain times, gold and silver is safe harbor. Now is the time to invest in gold. Call 800-686-2237 and Midas Resources will mail you 10 reasons to own gold absolutely free. No shipping. It's absolutely free. And finally, Ted Anderson wants to challenge you to find any deal that comes close to his 2 silver dollars at cost with free shipping with 2 free films and a book for $72. That's more than $160 value for $72 shipping included. Click the link at Infowars.com to go to the MidasResources.com specials page. Brought to you by MidasResources.com and Ted Anderson, the trusted name in precious metals.
Okay, to illustrate how Google can censor results on 2 different computers last night and then again today, I tried to search Bush Obama ordered torture, Bush Obama committed torture. Can we punch up the screen here? Yeah, it's 2:08 Central Time. We're into overdrive right now with Richard Belzer, author, comedian, movie star, TV star, you name it. But all around really smart, informed guy since the 70s exposing the conspiracies of corruption. But look, I type in Obama Bush committed torture, and I get Global Research, I get Democracy Now!, Before It's News, InfoWars. Look, Huffington Post, okay? Now, again, this originally happened in the New York Times, day before the bombing. Bush, Obama committed torture, New York Times. I put in New York Times, and I finally get an April 16th article, barely mentioning the article from the 14th, the day before the bombing. And it goes on to show the task force, led by a Republican and a Democrat for the Congressional Committee, found that they ordered them to do it, and it still continues. So, you know, you go see Zero Dark 30, that's a bunch of torture porn, and then they have Obama on the TV set in that going, I've now ordered torture to stop. And then in the movie they go, we can't torture to keep you safe anymore because Obama ordered torture to stop. Folks, they're torturing people all over the place. And I mean putting them in small cages, too small for them, waterboarding them, burying them alive, electroshock, drugs. That's all been declassified. Really by whistleblowers, not even declassified. They're trying to arrest people that exposed it, but it's been confirmed. Raping people's kids in front of them, Army report. Just type in Army report on Abu Ghraib torture. They did stuff in there I can't even say on air with small children and battery acid. Large objects by battery acid, you can figure it out if you want to. And then you see movies like Hostel and Saw, and I know the Saw producer, Mark Berg, you know, not a bad guy, but you know they're making money off this, where it's desensitizing people, showing all the torture, the cutting up. I mean, I went to a horror movie with my dad, Evil Dead, you know, the remake. I thought, well, I want to see this, and I went to it, and they were really violent, chopping people up, graphic stuff, and people were laughing in the audience, and it was not a comedy like the first one. I mean, I like that Army of Darkness comedy. You know, some of those. Who's that guy? The dark-haired actor. I forget his name. I'm not a. Yeah, Bruce Campbell. I mean, that's pretty funny stuff. But this was not funny, and people were laughing at it. And my point is, we're losing our humanity. Now, Richard Belzer, I'll give you the floor the last 10 minutes here of this segment. But you know, getting at this, because you mentioned this last segment's why I held you over, and I appreciate you holding over with us. It comes out that okay, Bush ordered it. And then when they got caught, they sent people to prison that followed the orders.
Right.
And then now they're continuing it, and they're expanding it, and they're not even torturing real al-Qaeda. They run them. They're doing it for fake confessions to have show trials. I mean, and now they're saying, oh, the one brother that lived, he confessed in his bed while under sedation, but we don't have proof of that. I mean, right there, the guy walks. You can't get a fair trial. They go, well, he's a terrorist, so he doesn't. No more due process.
Well, you know, they said it wasn't even clear. He may have shot himself in the neck, or he was shot by the police. And how do you have a gun battle with a guy who doesn't have a gun?
Oh, he climbed out of there unhurt, and they cut his throat out. I mean, it's incredible.
And we're supposed to believe that he confessed. You know, it's such an insult. That's why, you know, you and I probably get part of our anger is the patronization and the utter contempt for the American people. The founders felt that an informed citizenry was really a key to, you know, picking your leaders. And they've really bastardized and diluted. You know, our country was a great idea, but it's been appropriated by these thugs who now have technology on their side. That's why we have to be really vigilant. You know, like you said, you know, our refrigerators now know what we eat. Jesus, I mean, God.
And you have a groundbreaking, multi-year investigation, bipartisan, whistleblowers risk their lives, and they go, okay, you tortured, you ordered it, you're war criminals, it's indisputable, premeditated, you lied. And they don't get in trouble for that. Benghazi, IRS gate. I mean, these people make Nixon. It's just incredible. I mean, how much can they get away with, Richard? Are they above the law?
Well, literally, yes. You know, Nixon got caught, but he got caught. He was busted not for any reasons like secretly bombing Cambodia or, you know, any of that stuff. He just went into the wrong place. He threatened the CIA. He was going to sick the FBI on the CIA about the JFK, so that's why they got rid of him. It was nothing to do with how bad a president he was.
Yeah, he got too big for his britches and tried to act like the president.
Yeah, you can't threaten the CIA. Look what happens. You know, John Kennedy saw that the CIA went beyond its charter. They lied to him about the Bay of Pigs, and they started a war in Vietnam, and because they were making tons of money in Vietnam, and he said, I'm getting out, you know. He also was going to change the Federal Reserve. You know, Kennedy took Eisenhower very seriously. And there's a key word in Eisenhower's speech, his farewell speech, when he warned us about the military-industrial complex. And Alex, I just found out from Walt Brown, a great researcher, that originally in the speech, Eisenhower was going to say military congressional complex.
Ah.
And Richard Nixon convinced Eisenhower to take that out because it would estrange, you know, the party.
No, I actually saw that in the Frontline episode. That's actually on record.
Oh,
Nixon wrote him letters as vice president saying, do not do this, don't tie. And the full speech, he talks about a technocratic elite, a scientific elite that's running it to where they control all the science, and then it's a technocratic dictatorship.
Yeah, and that's right, literally. And he actually used the word spiritual in the speech. You know, that it affects every phase of our lives. You know, both economic and political and spiritual. So here's a 5-star general who saw the World War II, who liberated the camps, who became president, was too moderate for whoever was, you know, the permanent national security.
Well, if you watch the full speech, somebody drops a book or something, slams, and he jumps. They had just come to him and said, let's blow up bases and blame it on Cuba to invade, and he just fired a bunch of people. And so that's why he was so freaked out. He's like, they want to blow up army bases and blame it on the Soviets and have a nuclear war, but they respected him enough to not kill him because he'd been the supreme Allied commander. And you have done your research. That's it. Kennedy was respected Eisenhower and was actually trying to continue the cleanup that he tried to do.
Well, and actually, it's the CIA tried to sabotage a Russian ship in the bay off of Cuba to embarrass Kennedy, but it backfired. They lied to him. He didn't call off the airstrikes. General Cabo called off the airstrikes. And Kennedy said, if you destroy all the 10 of their planes in Cuba, then you got something going. But they lied to him. They blackmailed him. And that's when he fired Dulles and realized, whoa, you know, he was in deep. Generals lied to him. CIA lied to him. Because Kennedy was rich, he was insulated and kind of naive, and he thought, okay, I'm going to make peace in the world. I'm going to, you know, have civil rights. I'm going to take care of the elderly. I'm going to let free enterprise reign. You know, he lowered, taxes were really high in his day.
He cut them by half. Yeah, he cut them by 35.
Yeah, so, I mean, he was, you know, he took on steel, he took on banks, took on oil, he took on the Pentagon. I mean, you know, come on. It's like...
And then his brother took him on and they killed him.
Oh, yeah. His brother said that first thing Bobby Kennedy did after Jack Kennedy was murdered, he called John McCone and said, you bastards killed my brother, meaning the CIA. And then in a speech, he said, I can't find out who really did it until I become president. So, of course, that painted a target on his back.
And then you have the police report where Sirhan's arm is pinned. He doesn't shoot him. We know the CIA Skunk Works worker that did it. The police reports even admit that he was shot in the back. And,
so, and the temple.
Yeah.
Yeah, Thane Caesar, who worked for Wackenhut, as you know, that security firm, was standing right behind. And Sirhan was about 8 feet away, so he couldn't have had powder burns. And they took 14 bullets out of that pantry. Sirhan's gun had 8 bullets in it. Bobby Kennedy had powder burns on his. And if you notice, Bobby turned around and grabbed the tie and ripped it off of the guy behind him because he knew who shot him. And what's heartbreaking, among other things, is Bobby Kennedy's last words were, is everybody okay? He was concerned about other people. Whatever his politics, that's where he went at his last moment.
Well, I mean, I've seen the photos of his jacket. It had like giant blast holes in it and burn holes. I mean, he was clearly shot at point-blank range in the back.
And yeah, well, some people think he was definitely shot in the temple because there's powder burns on his hair. And then other people said he was also shot. But, you know, they shot him. You know, I mean...
I'm going from memory, but I had like Jim Marsden folks on. And, I mean, I think he was also shot in the back. Yeah, like you were saying. But am I wrong about him being shot? Plus, it was the London Guardian, the photos of the 3 known CIA guys, very high level, in the audience that day at the hotel. Have you seen that?
The Ambassador Hotel, yes.
Unbelievable.
I don't think he was shot in the back, Alex. It was in the temple because there was powder burns on his hair. But who knows? You know, I mean, we do know that Sirhan did not shoot him. We do know that Sirhan was hypnotized. A tape was leaked of you know, in hypnotism, there's a thing called the key where you can unlock the subject and they'll reveal how they were, you know, what they were supposed to do. And Sirhan was clearly hypnotized and, you know, had no idea that he didn't even remember that he shot Bobby Kennedy.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And it's just so amazing. And then now these people want to get rid of our families and our private property and our liberty. Also, they can run everything. They're going to destroy the human species so they can be in control.
You know, what fascinates me is the ultra-rich's obsession with thinning the herd. Like, that is since, you know, the turn of the century. there's been this thing, and I think it hints at a soft eugenics, which America started with,
It does. Richard Belzer, amazing having you on. Folks, get the book, InfoWarsStore.com, hit list.
Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.